CB.
Dunny, we back much to the public's chagrin.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a big word. That was a huge word.
Coming in early with the buttons.
Coming in early, man. The button game's strong. We've been missing the buttons. People have been asking for them.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Around town?
Where's Beyond Flag? Button game's strong, man.
Yeah. I don't know if I've seen those requests.
Oh, it's been everywhere.
Yeah.
Saw one on a sticker on the railroad the other day.
Is that why people were gathering down at City Hall?
Yeah, I think
wanting button games back.
Was it that? There was a bunch of signs about abortion and then button game strong. Those are the... Yes, that's what I saw. Yeah. Man. Yeah, man, you're bringing it. You're bringing it strong. It has been a long time, my friend. It is good to be back in the chateau.
Good to be back, and we're back with another guest today. So that's good news for the listeners.
Yeah, good news for the listeners, no doubt. Things been good in your world or what?
Just living that life.
Yeah, I believe that. Saying it all right there.
Hey, yeah, man, we had the Flag Film Fest. So it's still on. You can go see the online film fest till the end of May, I think. But the Flag Film Fest went on last month. It was great.
Yeah, we were super fortunate to host a breakout group or something to that effect. I was actually out of town for it. You kind of opened the doors.
I did, the question and answer session for the film The Trails Before Us, which was an incredible film about enduro mountain biker Nigel James. Getting sponsored and building trails and also riding trails from his ancestors, trails that his ancestors have used for a long period of time. But also in this way, I think it's important to say that I learned through the Q&A period that, they're actually really selective about what trails they use in combination with being mindful of the land and what they use the land for, and really having a relationship with the land, so they make decisions where to use and build trails, and created a documentary about it.
Oh, it's so neat to hear. I'm really bummed that I missed out on that.
Oh, it was good stuff. The Q&A period. And the film's great. You can still catch the film, The Trails Before Us. It's on the online version of the Flag Film Fest. You can see that and a whole slew of other films by going to the Flag Film Fest website. What do you got on the docket?
Man, something we got coming up is the Night Visions exhibition, Cultural Interpretations of the Night Sky, and this is taking place at Coconino Center of the Arts. It'll open May 21st and then last until August 27th, so it'll be there for a few months. This exhibition is in its 8th iteration and is in honor of the legacy of Carolyn and Eugene Shoemaker, with the inclusion of archival astronomical elements alongside the work of contemporary artists. Just looking at the postcard, man, it looks super cool.
Oh, yeah. So, and also the good thing here is that it takes place over several months. So you and me have plenty of opportunities to catch it when we inevitably forget and then need to put it back on the books.
Yeah, that's a good thing for us. Yeah. Yeah. If this was only a one-time exclusive release, this period of time on this specific date. Yeah. Definitely be late. Yeah.
How's your life been? You asked me about mine.
I've been living that life.
That one?
I've been living that life.
What is that one?
It's been good, man. It's been good. April was busy.
Coaching up them Navy SEALs?
Yeah. Soccer season is in full effect. I'm coaching the Flagstaff Soccer Club U7 Navy SEALs. In our cheer. Yeah, it is impressive. In our cheers, we clap and bark. Oy, oy, oy. Oh, man. Come on. That's the beginning of the game right there. Yeah. So we got the SEALs, man. We got a strong team, a lot of fun that's happening. We're over there on the Thorpe Park fields on Sundays from 12:30 to 1:30, running around like a bunch of juveniles. It's fun, man. I love watching those kids play soccer.
Yeah. Good time. So you're living that life.
I'm living that life. Yeah. Coach Lasso is back.
Did you check out, I don't know if you saw Cocodona?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago, huh? Yeah, that was last week.
You were talking about watching.
Yeah. I logged into IG one day, and then Air Vipo was going live, and it was the final finisher of the race, and he had finished like 2 minutes before the cutoff time.
Ooh, cutting it close.
Yeah, and it was really neat, man. They were coming, when I turned on, they were running kind of by where the hospital is on Beaver Street.
Yeah.
So I stayed tuned for about 5 minutes, all the way till when he finished. And they ran right by the chateau, man.
Yeah.
They went right by Beyond the Pines, which was kind of fun to see.
Yeah, La Chateau. So finishing up that 250 miles.
Good night. Yeah, that's a race, huh?
Didn't you say that, he was like trying to finish it in the cutoff and he like leaned against a building?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man.
Yeah. He was down to the bottom of Beaver and he kind of took a break and they were like putting water on him and getting him water. And I was like, dude, you got a block and a half to go. And like, you got like 3 minutes or something. Just make it happen. And I'll also shut up because I have not run 249 and 3/4 of a mile at this point or whatever.
He had earned a break for sure.
Good night. Yeah.
But you were like, someone just put him on your shoulders and
just get across
him
that
across the line.
Totally. And I don't know, it was really cool to see, just super emotional, like seeing a person finish that kind of effort.
Yeah, that kind of effort. That's incredible. Dig deep. We were downtown that morning and saw 4 or 5 finishers coming through. Yeah. Just incredidible to cover 250 miles independently.
Yeah, and under 5 days, I think is whatever it is.
Monday to Saturday.
Yeah. And the finisher did it in under 3? Something just bonkers. 60-something hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, super cool though, man.
And the homie, the Beyond Flag homie.
Oh, yeah, we got Beyond Flag alumni on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sensman.
Eric Sensman.
Yeah.
Finished it off. He's a mustachioed hombre. That is for sure.
Yeah, but he finished.
Yeah.
Killer, man. Killer.
I think it was his mustache that pulled him through.
Absolutely. That thing probably pulls him through a lot in life. Yeah.
Shout out Eric Sensman.
Interview today.
Yeah. Fortunately for the guests.
Fortunately for the listeners. Gosh, because this has been really entertaining for them. But we're going Beyond Flag today, man. We're going Beyond Flag with Laurel Morales, founder and host of the 2LivesPodcast. Prior to starting the 2LivesPod, Laurel was a senior field correspondent for KJZZ, Fronteras, and a freelance journalist for NPR. Throughout her career, she won a variety of awards, including one from the Public Radio News Director Incorporated for the only commentary piece she's ever written.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, you just go out on top.
Yeah, write one, win an award, call it good.
Yeah, that's all you need.
Yeah, jersey in the rafters. Well done, Laurel. Laurel earned her bachelor's degree from the Miami University, not to be confused with the U. This Miami is in Ohio. #go
Redhawks.
Redhawks. Hey, fun fact. Miami University is the 10th oldest public university in the nation, which brings one question to mind, Dunny.
Yeah, what's that?
What is the oldest public university in the United States?
That's actually pretty easy. That's a 3-way tie.
Huh?
Yeah. It's Georgia, UNC Chapel Hill, and William and Mary.
Daniel Phillips, everybody. Laurel's education also includes a master's degree in journalism from the Northwestern University, commonly referred to, and currently sparring with Harvard for rights to the use of the title of NAU of the East. #go
Wildcats.
Wildcats, come on.
Oh, yeah, man. Them Northwestern or Harvard battling it out.
Yeah, they're really duking it out. It's just an intellectual minefield. It's pretty amazing to watch, huh?
A battle for the title.
Yeah.
NAU of the East.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty highly sought after title, so we understand it. We get it.
So then would they, if let's say that Northwestern gets it, would they start calling themselves the Lumbercats?
It'd be the Lumbercats. Got yourself on that one up. #go Lumbercats. Yeah. NAU of the East. Cumberlats. Yeah, man. Well done. Laurel has lived in Flag for about 20 years, and when she's not chilling in her closet recording episodes of 2 Lives, she can be found on the infamous Lost Burrito Trail on the Dry Lake Hills, doing yoga or having sushi with her daughters at Karma, my favorite sushi bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, good spot.
Yeah. So check this episode out. She discusses her experiences as a journalist, kind of goes in depth, talking about secondhand exposure to trauma and what led to starting the 2 Lives podcast. Also of note, there's a reference to Dangerous Minds.
Yeah, come on. Show my name, Coolio, Gangster's Paradise.
Yeah, you're not going to want to miss that.
Yes.
Yeah. So she finishes up by sharing what brought her to Flag and ultimately how she connects to the town. So thanks for joining us as we go Beyond Flag with
Laurel Morales.
Welcome to Beyond Flag, a Beyond the Pines production, created by, with, and for the people of Flagstaff building connection in the town we love. We are your hosts,
Dr. Daniel J. Phillips.
And Cody Bayless, also known as Dr. Chinchilla Nice Nice. Thanks for tuning in as we go beyond flag, straight from the dunny of our observatory.
Okay, here we are. So, hello, welcome to Laurel. Welcome here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
nice to be here.
Oh, we're excited to have you. So to jump in, can you give us a little bit of a heads up of what you currently do and what that looks like?
Yeah, I'm coming up on a year of doing it on my own. I produce a podcast called 2 Lives, the number 2 Lives, and it's based on a quote: "We're all given 2 lives. The second begins the moment we realize we have only one." And there's stories of people who have faced some darkness and how those moments shifted or transformed them in big, small, or surprising ways. Mm-hmm. So for 20 years, I've been a public radio reporter. Mm-hmm. About 10 years at KNAU here in Flagstaff, and the latter 10 years for KJZZ while still living here in Flagstaff. I was not prepared or willing to go down to the valley. And they needed a Northern Arizona reporter, so it all worked out. And freelanced for NPR all the while. I worked for both. And the last 5 or 6 years, I had been getting a little restless with the 4-minute feature and feeling kind of limited by that. And I kept meeting incredible people who had such complex stories that the 4-minute feature was not going to do it justice. I knew that I couldn't tell their story in 4 minutes or less and feel good about it. I tried, but it just wasn't as satisfying. I kept a list of people in my back pocket, and then COVID hit, and I was meeting people who had survived COVID, in particular, a woman, Margarita Donald, who was a Navajo translator out in Tuba City. Mm-hmm. And she caught COVID, as many Navajo did. Mm-hmm. And it was at the time when they had the highest per capita rate in the country. And she essentially saved herself with the knowledge that she had from, she'd done some nursing school, and her dream was actually to become a nurse. She survived. One of the craziest moments in her story was she was asleep at her son's house and couldn't catch her breath. And instead of going to the hospital where she knew there weren't any beds left, she went to her son's truck and turned it on and blasted the air conditioning and put her face right up against the air conditioning to force air into her lungs. And so anyways, she survived and became a nurse or is becoming a nurse. I have to check back with her. But that was something she promised herself through this near-death experience, was she was going to fulfill her dream.
And so people like that inspired the idea. Yeah.
So I pitched the podcast idea to KJZZ, and they said, yeah, sounds great. Here's 3 months. Go do it. And I produced about 6-7 episodes in that 3 months. Uh-huh. And so we ran it as a limited run podcast, but I wanted to keep doing it. I found that this was really what I was passionate about. We heard from listeners that these stories were meaningful. They were finding connection at a time when it was difficult to find connection. And I felt really passionate about continuing it, and came to my boss and said, how about making me a full-time podcast producer? And it was not the first time I'd asked them to do this. And they said, no, we really need you to go back to daily news reporting. And I said, okay, well then I'm going to go continue the podcast. And we left on friendly terms. And luckily they gave me the intellectual rights to keep the name and not the RSS feed, unfortunately, but that's okay. I was able to build the listenership back up.
Yeah, wow. So you had to kind of take a leap there.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Still leaping right now. I feel like I'm still midair.
A couple years in.
1 year in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that first story, that was in 2021. And
it was. So those stories first aired on KJZZ's feed, and then I've since started my own and purposed those episodes for the 2 Lives feed that I have now.
Yeah.
Separately.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it on my own for a year.
Yeah. And those first, did you say it was 6 episodes, that limited release? And that was over a 3-month span while you're still working for KJZZ.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it was the leap to do it on your own. How did you, so I hear you saying you feel like you're midair still, but how did you make the decision to actually jump off the edge?
It was a long time coming. I was feeling pretty burned out as a reporter, and had a sort of 2 Lives moment of my own where I'd covered the Yarnell Hill fire, and that was probably the hardest assignment I ever had, aside from COVID, where 19 firefighters were killed. And seeing their families the day that they found out that their loved ones died was just devastating. And of course, my secondary PTSD is nothing in comparison to what they are going through and what they went through. But driving home from another wildfire assignment, I almost ran my car into a rock wall. Took my eyes off the road for a second because I was on deadline to look at my phone, and I had 2 little girls at home, and I knew that I couldn't do daily news reporting for much longer, and I really wanted to show them and model for them that you can follow your dreams, and so that was definitely the turning point. And then sitting down with my husband and saying, okay, budget-wise, can we do this? And figuring it out logistically.
Yeah, ironing that side of it out.
Yeah, how long was it between the Yarnell fire? I guess that experience that you're describing, and then when you made that decision to take the leap into 2 Lives on your own?
A while. The one was the Yarnell Hill fire.
So 20,
I'd have to Google it.
18, 17.
Yeah, so it's been a while. And it's, I think, like many women, I felt like, oh, well, I don't have the training to do that. How could I do this on my own? And it was really going to therapy and finding my voice. A public radio reporter who has to find her voice. That finally gave me the courage, and my husband's support. He was super supportive. And my community's support here in Flagstaff.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you're kind of using that Yarnell fire as an example for the way you would experience secondary trauma, in addition to traveling around trying to meet deadlines and trying to live this life.
Right.
And it gradually, you felt more disconnected from it, but not enough confidence to make that leap into that thing that you felt passionate about to move towards.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think under the last administration reporting on COVID on the Navajo Nation, not listening to the news anymore myself, encountering more and more people who had stopped turning on NPR, and really finding more meaning and connection in these long-form stories, I knew that I needed to make a change.
Wow, just a quick Google search turned up that Yarnell was in 13.
Oh, it's been a while.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was thinking, this whole decade feels like a time warp, particularly the last few years.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, that's a pretty long process then that you were going through to finally take that jump.
Yeah, and I maybe Yarnell Hill wasn't the best example, but it did take a very long time for me to go to therapy to talk about some of the brutal. I think it's one thing to hear a news story that's triggering, and it's another thing to prepare for an interview, record the person hearing their story, be there with them through that with empathy, and then listen to that story several times, pulling cuts, writing, putting it in context, writing the story, listening to it again several times, crying every time you're listening to it, getting re-triggered. Like, I realized how just hard it is. I know that first responders definitely experience secondary trauma. I didn't realize how much of that I was holding when I heard people's stories.
Well, you're really touching on something that I've actually wondered before, that I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to ask a journalist, but I've wondered at times, a journalist, sometimes, I don't know if the field is evolving, because I feel like people insert themselves more into stories than they did historically. Like when I was growing up, it seemed important to make sure you just say something as the subjective observer. Sounds like that line's closing a little bit to me when I hear stories. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, what's it like to go through that? And then when you still produce that story, are you still trying to present it as just a subjective, factual experience? Or how do you choose when to insert yourself or acknowledge emotion?
Through my journalism training, that I was always told, never insert yourself. The story is not about you. And then more and more, I found myself more interested in what NPR called reporters' notebooks, when they would do a sidebar or come on and talk to the host directly. A lot of the war correspondents have done this, where they'll say, yeah, we were in this crazy situation and the bomb exploded right next to me. And so I found myself interested in the behind the scenes, and maybe that was just because I'm a reporter, but I think other people are interested in that too. And then I heard, I'm blanking on his name, Radiolab.
Jab Abumrad or Rob Krulwich?
Abumrad, yeah. Talking about, I can't remember exactly what he said word for word, but it was something like, always leave a little bit of yourself in there. And then I heard another reporter from This American Life at a training say, if no one else is there to react to what's happening, you should keep your reaction in the story, because you are the advocate for the listener. And so I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, it absolutely does. It's like a tree falling in the forest. Yeah, if no one's there, it doesn't make a sound. And if you're there, you got to report on the sound, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to just kind of hear about, I don't know if you'd be willing to speak about this more, but just your own experience of that secondary trauma, becoming aware of that. And then I'm almost curious, like, how that informed the way in which you chose to go forward.
Well, it would manifest in migraines.
Okay.
As you're, I'm sure, aware, that I think fear, anger, frustration, all of those scary emotions manifest in our body somehow. And for me, that was touching my neck because it was neck and this like spike through my left eye. And the physical issues, I would be taking sick time away from work so that I could go see an acupuncturist or get a massage or spend a day in a dark room because I was hurting. And I didn't quite connect that might be from this secondary PTSD until I went and saw a wonderful therapist in town. And even still, when she pointed it out, it was hard for me to be like, oh, but I that's not my trauma. That's not my husband that died. But the moments that I've, replayed of things I've witnessed, stories I've heard, some people I think are, we hear this word a lot today, empaths. And I think the thing that maybe makes me a good listener, a good storyteller, was also the thing that was hurting me.
Yeah. Double-edged sword.
Yeah, and listening to you, I reflect on my own experience in that, and I was just thinking, like, man, it's been like 14, 15 years since I went through the master's program in counseling, and I don't remember learning about secondary PTSD or vicarious trauma too much. And then I worked in a job where I was exposed to these pretty horrific crimes and that sort of thing through paperwork and doing intakes with people and just get the paperwork first and then reading this thing. And I didn't understand the way in which my mind would construct images of all of these experiences. And then I would basically be exposed to those images. And then doing that day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out sort of thing. And then coming to that same thing, like, wow, I feel really burned out. I'm tired of this stuff. I feel really irritable and that kind of thing. It was interesting to come to a realization of, like, the effect of, again, not being exposed to the actual thing itself, but just the story itself and the images that it would create in my own mind. And I guess I would think that in reporting, you're right there. Like, you're right in that situation and collecting the family stories and that sort of thing. And I was wondering, as transitioning into 2 Lives and doing that now, do you experience that similar or different in any way?
It's a good question. And it was something my husband was really concerned about. He's like, well, what are you signing up for here?
Yeah.
Longer form stories that create more secondary trauma.
Yeah.
Just go deeper with it.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I would say I've gotten better at creating space for myself. I'm not on a daily deadline. I'm picking and choosing the stories that I find not only the most surprising or interesting, or the people that I find that have a strong voice that, I want to lift or shine a spotlight on or give them a platform to speak. But I'm picking and choosing people who I think have a great story, but I know the stories now that trigger me. And so I don't always, even if someone has an incredible story, I've learned that there are certain stories that are more triggering than others. And as an independent podcaster, I can also choose my schedule. And so more, just in the last month, I went from weekly to every other week. And that's made a big difference too. And I do things like meditate and hike and yoga after an especially intense interview. And that helps a lot.
Great. So you learn those strategies to buffer that stress and exposure. Yeah.
Well, I think too, the thing the underlying theme of what you just mentioned there is like having some autonomy with it, right? And part of trauma is that lack of control. So either in the environmental thing or the perpetrator is taking control and creating chaos in a situation. So it's like without the deadlines, without the urgency, without the assignment, where you have some choice to dictate and you have some fluidity with how you approach it.
Totally.
Gives you a little bit more power or influence and control in the situation.
Yeah. I hadn't actually articulated it that way or heard it articulated that way, but you're right. Yeah, it's a big part of it.
Yeah. By the way, I loved your 5-minute little snippet about how your daughter's performance, and your daughter didn't see you at all. Yeah. Where you mentioned you're cutting back from weekly to every 2 weeks because you realized that was best, just for both the quality of the podcast and for your own well-being. But you presented it by saying sometimes we stumble and we figure out new ways to go. And you talked about this instance where you were at your daughter's performance and she was singing.
Yeah, she had weeks before that. I picked her up from school and she jumped in the car saying, "Mom, I got a solo." She was super excited and had been practicing to give this solo for weeks, picked out a special outfit for it. And we get there and find a seat in the back. And it's finally her turn to get up to the microphone, and her music teacher steps right in front of her, and we couldn't see her, and I was trying to take a video for the grandparents. And so I have my teenage daughter sitting next to me too, who was also mortified by this. I tried to move to a different vantage point, and when I lunged across the aisle, my foot got caught in the strap of my purse, and I almost tripped, and like in slow motion picked up my foot thinking I'd freed myself of the strap, and totally did not free myself of the strap, and fell on my face. I even heard like a parent nearby go,
it's been shock and awe.
Right. But luckily my daughter didn't see it, and she was just...
Oh, that's great that your teenage daughter had experiences. A lot of teenagers just cringe anytime their parents bring attention to anything. Yeah. That's awesome.
The worst part was like no one acknowledged it. Like no one looked at me other than that gasp. Like no one, like not even my husband, like looked over and was like, "Are you okay?"
It's like we were gonna pretend like nothing happened. No one was there to tell your story. And then it takes a masterful storyteller that takes that instant, crafts it into a 5-minute, just beautiful story to draw the listener in and say, we're going from weekly to 2 weeks. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you do have, I mean, the quality... I was intimidated to have you come in today because the quality of 2 Lives is so great. It's such a great podcast. We'd encourage everyone to go check it out. And one of your episodes actually was 2021's one of Spotify's episode of the year for 2021. Yeah. And it kind of correlates. It made me think of that because that episode for me was a little traumatic. I mean, there were points in that seemed incredibly poignant. I never saw the way it was going. I never saw that coming. Just that quick transition. Yeah. What was it like for that story, and what's it like to feel the success in relation to a story like that?
What was it like to report on that, or to hear her
report on that story?
Well, Cambry has an intense story, and often I will meet people who definitely have a 2 Lives story, and they've written a book, and she was one of those people. And there was no way I was going to be able to condense down an entire memoir into like a 20 to 30 minute podcast and do it justice. She had told parts of her story in live storytelling events, and that's where I'd heard it. Yeah, I don't know if you want to hear part of the story now.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're willing to.
Yeah, so she is a CODA, a child of deaf adults, and was raised in pretty poor conditions in rural Texas. And if you have seen the movie CODA, you know that the parents have no idea how loud they're being, and they have no idea how loud their kids are. And so it's a unique experience, which she describes in really lively detail that I'm not doing justice right now. But her dad, when he drank, became abusive and was also paranoid. And I think part of his deafness contributed to that. Like he always thought his mom, or Cambry's mom and her were talking about him, and thought that his wife was cheating on him. and very nearly killed her in front of Cambry. Yeah. And she was the one to call the cops, and he threatened her as well. And wound up eventually after, I don't know if you want me to give it all away, but wound up eventually in jail for another violent assault. And she was asked to testify against him, refused, but her mom did. But what transpired after that is you would think Cambry would have cut off all ties with her dad, and she actually was able to rebuild a relationship with him once he was in jail and forgive him.
Yeah. And so for me, thinking about what you just shared about that vicarious trauma that sometimes you can experience, those intense moments in that story that you released, which I would encourage everyone to go check that one out. It hits you. It's almost like I could feel the fear listening to the story, when she was looking at her father like, oh no, what's going to happen? Yeah. Yeah. What was that like for you?
That was one of those stories where every time I listened to a certain part, I was emotional. It was hard to produce that one. Definitely triggering, not necessarily because of anything that happened in my life, but just because it was so violent. And because Cambry is such an amazing storyteller and performer, she could almost reenact what had happened. And so it's almost like you're witnessing it as you're listening to it. I think what ultimately drives me to continue to tell those stories is, I don't know. I think my devotion to story is stronger than my devotion to self-care. Maybe, I don't know. But I have found a way to take care of myself.
Separate from it. I wonder in my mind, even I feel like you've pulled back the curtain on some questions I had for what it's like to be a journalist. And so in those moments, are there moments when you're interviewing the person where you're like, let's take a break, or you call a pause to it based on what you're observing, or do you just power through with whatever is going on?
That's a great question. For these stories, not for my reporting prior to this, I don't. Actually, there were probably a couple of times where I've interviewed people where I've said, do you need to take a break? Or do you feel comfortable going on with this line of questioning? But for these stories, especially, we do pre-interviews where we will say, meaning my assistant producer who works with me 10 hours a week, or myself, will say, I am not a therapist. I am a storyteller. And while I am here to listen and provide space and honor your story, I am not here to comfort and care for you. So I want you to make sure you're okay sharing your story and finding time after you share my story, share your story to take care of yourself. Yeah. But in addition to that, I interviewed a woman who's also a psychologist and a writer who emailed me afterwards, after her story had aired, to say I was surprised at how I felt listening to my story being told back to me. And it at times was healing, but at times it wasn't. It was triggering. And so we set up another conversation to sort of debrief about that. And she's given me some great lessons that I've applied to other storytellers that I interview. And one of those is know what your no is in your body. Like if I ask a question, know what your boundary is. And I also, and I've done this since I interviewed Dwayne Koyawena, who's a Hopi artist here in Flagstaff, wonderful guy. I had just serendipitously run into him right the week before we were going to air his story or drop his episode. And he said, I feel like I might have said something I wish I wouldn't have, or that I don't want out in the world. Can I listen to it before, or can I see the script before it drops? And initially I was like, and my hesitation was the training I'd had as a journalist was we never, ever, ever share what the piece is with the person, which is a very strange policy, mostly because I think the fear was a couple of things. Either they'll take back what they said and say, nope, you can't use it. Or there's a legal reason, I'm sure. But yeah, so that was sort of drilled into me for many years, but I'd never questioned it before. I'd shared parts of pieces with people before and said, this is the part of your interview that we're using. I hope you're okay with it. I hope it's, we haven't taken it out of context. And I shared an entire story only once with a scientist because I'm not a science reporter. I don't have a science background. And I wanted to make sure I got the science right.
Yeah.
But after Dwayne, so I did share it with Dwayne, and he said, as a Hopi person, our culture is very sacred and secretive in many ways. And this thing that I said about our culture, I'm not comfortable going out on the air. And so thankfully he had caught it.
Mm-hmm. And you consented, you took out
absolutely
what he was asking.
Yes. Yeah. And so now I do that for every episode, and I tell people in advance, we'll be sharing a copy of the episode with you, or the script before it airs, to make sure that you're comfortable with everything that's in it. And I realized I'm asking people to share some of the most vulnerable parts of their life with the world, or I wish I had the world as an audience, but with listeners. And so, of course, I would want the same courtesy. And in fact, a couple of reporters who have profiled me about the podcast have done the same courtesy and sent me the profile. And I was able to catch a couple inaccuracies.
Here, even what you're saying, I think that's the sense I get from journalism, is people are acknowledging that we're actually more connected than just separately sitting with a person. And it's kind of what you're articulating in your own evolution with this. You graduated from Northwestern with your master's degree? Yeah. And it was in journalism, right? So is that where that was hammered into you, concepts like that?
Yes. That, and then every editor I've had since then. I would, people I'd interviewed would ask, can I see it before it goes out? And frequently those stories weren't sharing their deepest, darkest intimacies with me. So often I think they were coming from a place of, well, what angle are you taking? What's your agenda? And just, but it is, I think, a vulnerable, no matter, I'm sitting here in front of a microphone, it feels a little vulnerable. So I get it. But yeah, that was, it drilled in from, the time I was at Northwestern.
What led you to journalism?
When I graduated from college, I had an English and women's studies degree and really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I always loved to write. And I did a teaching abroad program in Ecuador, teaching English, learning Spanish, and living with an amazing host family. And it was during that year, letter writing and journaling, and discovering I was a horrible teacher or didn't have the patience for it, that I thought, well, I'm pretty good at writing. I'll give this a try. And I did a couple internships before going back to get my master's. I interned at Mother Jones Magazine in San Francisco, and then KQED also in San Francisco. And I really fell in love with the medium of audio for telling stories. And then went back and got my master's at Northwestern.
Okay.
NAU of the East.
NAU of the East? Yeah. Is that Illinois? Is that Indiana?
Chicago.
Okay.
Evanston.
Yeah. Okay.
Chi-town.
Chi-town. And then, sorry.
I want to hear about how you learned that you didn't have the patience for teaching.
Let's hear those experiences. Yeah.
What classroom experiences are you like, I'm done.
I've had enough of you kids. I've had enough of you people.
I'm going into journalism.
Laurel out. Yeah.
Well, I had flashbacks last year, 2 years ago, whenever that was, when our kids went online.
Yeah.
We were all home.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I taught 2nd and 6th grade English, and second graders were sweet. You know, just wanted to learn to sing songs in English. That was fun. But the 6th graders, man, middle school.
Oh gosh.
Tough nuts.
Yeah.
And my host brother was one of my 6th graders and also the smartest kid in the class who knew some English before ever taking my class. And that was an interesting dynamic, like coming home. You had almuerzo, lunch at home and after school, and some very awkward moments where he had been under my skin all day,
Causing problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it like a Dangerous Minds Michelle Pfeiffer situation where you had to try and gain his influence to influence the rest of the class?
A little bit, actually. And it's so funny. I saw that movie when I was in Ecuador.
Oh, wow.
With English, or wait, it was in English with Spanish subtitles.
Yeah.
And the Spanish subtitles said, "Atención, atención, atención," when the guy was saying, "Yo, yo, 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 yo." So it's like, I don't think that's a direct translation.
Attention.
Yeah.
Attention, everyone.
That's so good. Golly, middle school, I was just thinking, what a bummer that we all have to go through those years, and what a bummer that we have to live with people who are also going through those years.
Yeah.
That would be so tough. Golly.
I know.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying though. In that when you were sitting next to your daughter, and then if you trip, I actually really enjoy watching those moments. I have a son that just became a teenager, and I love watching him cringe. Just
embarrassed.
Yeah, just embarrassed, and it's somehow so rewarding.
Yeah. We'll find some jollies out of that for sure.
Right.
Also, last weekend we watched Napoleon Dynamite with him and a group of friends, and it was like watching in real life the thing that was happening
Yes.
on the screen. Yeah.
That's a good one to watch with them. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
It's a rough phase of life. Yeah. So that's one of your 2 lives moments where you had the Dangerous Minds experience, and different than Michelle Pfeiffer, you're like, I'm done. So
shout out Coolio. Yeah.
Shout out Coolio.
Yeah.
So then you pursued your degree in journalism following that. Yeah. After you finished your degree, how did you get into the field of journalism? What was the first job?
Yeah, so it was an awesome 1-year hands-on program. And so when that year was up, hands-on meaning we had written for a wire service while we were learning, both in Chicago and a semester in DC. We served as Washington correspondents for newspapers who didn't have them. And that was really cool. And I met Bill Clinton, who was in the White House at the time.
Oh, wow.
And Monica Lewinsky was probably on the lawn somewhere.
Wow. She only knows.
So this is pre.
Wow.
This is pre. Court hearing.
Scandal.
Pre-scandal. There we go.
Right. Yeah. Pre-scandal. But I do remember interns being there.
Wow.
But it was some fluffy press conference. I think they were like where they pardoned the turkey that they're going to have for but it wasn't that time of year. Oh no, it was taking the bald eagle off of the endangered species list, I think. Anyways, I knew there was a bird there.
Yeah. Turkey, eagle.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
One of them's our nation's symbol. I think it's turkey, right? Yeah,
Turkeys.
Feels like it.
Feels like it.
Yeah.
Oh man.
We eat by far a lot more turkeys in this nation. Yeah.
Anyways, after I graduated, all that to say, I had clips, something to show for some experience, and was able to land a job at a newspaper outside of Chicago. And I really liked Chicago. But the commute was horrible to this suburban newspaper from Chicago, and really wanted to get back to public radio, and had put in several applications with different public radio stations and landed my first public radio job at Minnesota Public Radio. And but the winters were way too intense for me.
So Minnesota, yeah. And how long were you there working there? 2 years.
Put in 2 years, and then covering southeastern Minnesota agriculture, like factory worker type stories. There was a story where it was a slow news day, and my editor said, go out to those dairy farmers and ask them what they do when the temperatures get so high. Like, do the cows still want to give milk? I was like, seriously, this is my job. So I found like the shyest possible dairy farmer I could find, who was like monosyllabic.
Yeah.
And I was like, so how are those cows doing? They're hot. What do you do for them? We put fans on them. It was like the most
real compelling.
really compelling radio.
Yeah.
Do you have a copy of that story?
Oh man, yeah, right.
Can we link that?
Oh, I wish I did. No. So yeah, but Minnesota Public Radio, and then my friend Dan, who I met in college, my undergrad, at Miami of Ohio. He was out here in Flagstaff. Daniel Crocker, he used to, for people who've been here a while, he used to cover, he started the Indian Country News Bureau because his wife brought them out here to work in the Indian Health Service out on Hopi in Kikotsmobi. And so he worked for KNAU, and he said, there's a job opening as the All Things Considered host. You should apply. And I did. And when I came out, it was October, and they gave me a rental car. And in my free time, I drove down the switchbacks to Sedona, and the aspens were all ablaze. It was like that perfect time of year. And then we hiked, Dan and his family and I hiked Cathedral Rock, and we got to the top, and there was a double rainbow, and I was like, oh, this is it. I got to move out here. And a month later, so I moved out thinking, 2 year stint. I'll give it 2 years. Flagstaff's such a small town. I can't imagine staying here longer than 2 years. And a month later, I met my husband, and he is a longtime Arizonan. He is from Tucson and went to NAU, and convinced me, and has since convinced me to stay. So that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, here you are. 2 years times 10.
Turns into 20 quick. You also mentioned before we were doing the interview that there was this recurring dream that seemed to manifest itself also, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to share that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so years before, back in college, I started having this dream where I was in a white Volkswagen Bug driving out to the Southwest, driving through the Southwest. And I in my head, it was Monument Valley, but probably because I had seen pictures of it. And when I met my husband, I discovered he had this very same white Volkswagen Beetle, and it still sits in our garage today. Mostly sits in our garage. Doesn't go many places, unfortunately.
Is there an underlying message in there for him?
No.
Okay.
It's a great car.
There's something to be interpreted there. Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah.
There's no unspoken message in there.
No.
Right on.
So that was confirmation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it felt right for sure moving out here.
Yeah. What's led to it going from 2 to 20? So you said he's talked you into it. So and building a life here. But what are the reasons that you've ended up staying in this area?
Yeah, I resisted it for a while, seriously. Felt really isolated, trying to get back to see my family in the Midwest. Takes a whole day to get down to Phoenix or take a puddle jumper from Flagstaff. And to get anywhere actually felt kind of difficult. But really very quickly found community and really good friends. And I've stopped resisting probably in the last few years when I realized there's no way I can find friends like these, along with, and I think people say community, they throw that word out there a lot, but like, where else can you be where, I was on a walk the other day in Buffalo Park with a friend who has a dog, and this runner stops to pet my friend's dog, Eleanor, and pulls her out of her Camelback dog treats and gives them to her dog. I'm like, what the? How did that happen? And she's like, oh, that's the owner of Biff's. I'm like, oh, of course. And and it's stuff like that seems to happen. And I can't imagine being anywhere else.
Yeah. And even right there, you say the owner of Biff's, and Biff's is named after a dog. They love dogs. It's the local bagel shop that everyone knows. You have to go pay cash. Right. Even right there, there's so much depth to just the fabric of the community in that moment. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I cannot go into Biff's with my daughters because they will be crying by the time we leave, because they put up photos of dogs who have passed.
The whole
like a whole
memorial.
Yeah, there is this thing in Flagstaff where canines are held in higher esteem than humans, I would say. Yeah, canines
appropriately so.
Yeah, appropriately so. Treated much better than humans.
For sure. Or at least they get some things right.
Yeah. So your relationship with Flagstaff really evolved over time. It seems like initially feeling a little isolated and got to this place where you feel really connected, and there is this thing that feels really fulfilling for you to be here.
Yeah. And it, once again, wasn't until I went to therapy that I realized that, where I stopped thinking that someplace else was the answer. Just knowing that as much as I love Hawaii and hope to end up there someday, it's not very realistic. I mean, talk about isolated. I think I would feel more isolated there.
Yeah.
Get island fever. Hawaii is the place you kind of imagine, though. Like, that'd be the dream spot.
Specifically, Kilauea, Kauai.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my favorite place on earth.
Yeah.
Aside from Flagstaff.
Yeah. So you visited there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
for my husband and my it was our 10-year reunion or 10-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Reunion coming together.
Yeah, yeah, in that white bug.
Yeah.
Is the water there in Kauai, is it bluer than the water out at Lake Mary?
You think?
Oh, thank
It's
you.
up for debate.
Thank you for that response.
It's up for debate.
Thank you for that response.
It sure doesn't feel as good as the water Lake Mary, I'll tell you that.
It's not as blue as Havasu Creek, though.
Oh yeah. Well, don't do that. This is a side argument. Cody's convinced that Lake Mary's the largest and most glorious body of water in the world.
I think there's a pretty compelling argument for it.
I don't know there is.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've
Compelling?
seen so much goose poop out there.
Yeah,
It's,
man. Get in there. Get in there. That's water in the desert. Come on. Come on. That's Lake Mary.
Oh, so it's a contextual thing. There's no water, no water, no water. Here's
Like
water,
Mary.
so this water is glorious.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does seem miraculous when you do find water in the desert. I'll give you that.
Oh, truly. Yeah. Yeah.
Don't rescue him. Don't save him. It only feeds the
There's truth
absurdity.
to what Laura was saying at this moment.
No.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
No.
Yeah. You can see that this is a long-standing thing between Dan and I. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So, I had mentioned to you, one thing that we always like to ask people is how they define Flagstaff. So you've spoken about this area. How do you define Flagstaff?
This is a good question. I mean, I can only think of anecdotes like the one I shared in Buffalo Park. A lot of the people that I've interviewed for 2 Lives, Dwayne Koyowena, the Lebenzes, Jake Bacon, and Ross Altenbaugh, who runs the Flagstaff shelter. If you haven't interviewed her yet, you should. She's amazing. Are people who are not only are drawn here maybe initially because of their love for the outdoors, for being young at heart. There's the whole boating community that I think there's a lot of seasonal people because of that. They may be drawn here initially for the beauty, the Grand Canyon and the peaks and the red rocks, but stay because of the people and the people who I think look out for each other. And I think that's evident. I think Jake is actually like the perfect example of that. Someone who's been through something so traumatic and had neighbors and friends and people who barely knew him reach out and hold him and take care of him in a way, and not forget either. I think that, it may be too soon, but you can say that for the biking community too, after the biking accident. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of the story you did on ribs too, like Run with Ribs and the fabric of the community.
Yeah, totally.
Really pulling together.
Yeah.
So come for the outdoors, stay for the people.
Stay for the folks.
Yeah, that's our slogan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did it.
Well done.
Also, we haven't redone our intro, but our new tagline is underproduced and overstated. And so I mentioned that because I really appreciate your patience and you tolerating our ineptitude with recording. You've been so kind and generous, Laurel.
Yeah.
I have been there for sure.
Yeah.
It's the least I could do.
Yeah. Well,
My karma.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to sit with you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Yeah, Laurel just left the building.
She just left the building. And in the meantime, we got ourselves some good listening.
How much of this can we play without? I'm sure that someone will be alerted to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure ASCAP busts after 10 seconds or something like that, huh? Is that what it is? 10 seconds? Oh, man. Probably start
What
that
if
over.
you just keep playing 9 seconds, 9
Yeah,
seconds, 9 seconds?
That's what I'm saying. The American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. I think they'll be on us.
Yeah, why are you playing that tune?
Oh, man, how great was that? Well, you dropped a reference to Dangerous Minds and Michelle Pfeiffer when she was talking about being a teacher in Ecuador and trying to liken her experience to developing the rapport with the one to reach the crew. Like, that was amazing. Really getting in with the one to reach the group. Yeah. Yeah. So here we are. And I think nonchalantly tried to throw in a shout out to Coolio in there.
Nonchalantly. Dude, oh man, it was so hard for me not to just derail the entire thing in that moment when you're like, shout out Coolio.
Gangsta's Paradise, man. Yeah.
That's a classic piece of art.
Yeah. The movie itself and the song. Those two things in conjunction, living in with one another, just, it's bong
It
bong.
really kind of defined the U.S., right? In the 90s.
In the 90s, sure. Yeah, it was the seminal work for the United States in the 1990s.
Which really, we need to just say thank you to Laurel for your patience.
Yeah. If you made it this far, to anybody, Laurel particularly, golly, man, you are superhero status. This is incredible. Wow.
Thank you.
Tweedledee and Tweedledum are back.
So it was so generous of her. She really pulled the curtain back, I think, on what it's like to be a journalist. And then through that discussion, I think she just showed so much connection to self in learning that she may have been working in a field that expects you to kind of categorically let go of yourself while you're just touching on something, but then her own evolution into realizing the toll that took and how to be more autonomous and in control of what she was doing professionally.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to her talk through that and explain her process and her experiences. I really appreciate her bringing up the concept of secondary trauma and being willing to share openly about that. I think, we can't talk enough about that stuff. And I get on my soapbox about trying to normalize that experience and how for people in a variety of professions are exposed to a whole lot of horrific stuff. And aren't really aware of the effects. News reporter being one of those. When she talked about like reporters being in places where a bomb goes off next to them and that sort of thing. Yeah. Like, man, that firsthand, but then even just in interviewing people about their experiences. Yeah. Be very traumatic.
Laurel then concluded with talking about how, she came here actually with a kind of an idea for 2 years and ended up sticking longer. And she really emphasized how she's experienced community here with that great anecdote of Buffalo Park.
Biff's Bagels, man. Yeah, that's great. She was really speaking to, well, she mentioned the word community, right?
Yeah.
That gets thrown out a lot. But yeah, and you pointed out the multi-levels that are unfolding in that one interaction there and how representative of Flagstaff it is.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And so what did she say? Come for the outdoors and stay for the people.
Yeah, that's our tagline for the episode.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laurel, for highlighting that for us.
Yeah, well done. She's a wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come for the outdoors, stay for the people.
Yeah. Which is kind of similar and different to come on vacation, stay on probation, which kind of gets used for Flagstaff a lot.
Why don't you take us out by shouting us out?
No doubt. If you made it this far, thanks for tuning in. You can always find us on the interwebs, www.beyondflag.com, flag spelled
FLG.
We're on that Instagrams and that Twitters. Literally, we got those accounts. They are beyond_FLG. Check us out. Give us a like, follow, and a lovies.
All right. Well, take care.
Lovies.
Yeah. Brings to mind another 90s reference. Anderson Cooper back when he was on Channel 1 News. Did you get Channel 1 News?
I remember Channel 1, like in school?
Yeah.
Yeah, we called it Whittle or something like that.
Oh, yeah. No. So where maybe it had changed when you went to school. Maybe it progressed. But Anderson Cooper was a field correspondent.
He was.
Yeah.
For Channel 1.
Yeah. Oh, and he was like,
Yeah.
just in the midst of war zones. Like, that's what made me think of it. Like, literally in buildings where bombs are going off next door.
Yeah. Was that like a Desert Storm time?
Oh, I think it was Serbia. If I remember right. Wow, man. Just
we're going back.
Bring back memories. The reason it sticks with me, though, because I remember watching it and being like, man, that guy's kind of in the thick of it.
He's like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's he doing? Like the camera shook from like a bomb going off in the literal building next door to him. I think he was in Serbia.
Wow. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, what a platform to start on. Channel 1 News. It's no wonder that he's reached the successes he has.
Yeah. Channel 1 really sets you in motion for a high level, successful career.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Shout out Anderson Cooper. Yeah.
Let's just take this moment to shout out Coolio.
Anderson Cooper. How many times do those two people make them into your just kind of day-to-day conversation? Hey man, I was listening to Coolio the other day after watching Anderson Cooper. Yeah.
Imagine
And
if
Dangerous Minds,
Anderson,
man.
imagine if Anderson took on Coolio's hairstyle.
And vice versa.
Yeah. Just the comb over for Coolio.
Yeah, just white.
Coolio and the white-haired comb over.
And the white-haired comb
silver
over.
fox.
Dude, we're going to produce those images. Yeah, we got those images. We'll make those
Can
for
you do those?
Yeah, I know a guy. You want those images? I know a guy.
Oh, these memes are going viral.
Oh, dude. We might not be able to really just share those on a wide range. That might be for private consumption.
All right. Well, thank you, Laurel, for joining us.
Yeah. I get it if you never want to hear our names again. That makes sense.
Oh, man, we got to bring it back
You
together.
got a whole lot of editing to do.
I have so much editing on this one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The outtakes may be longer than the intakes.
I think so. I think so. Golly. Where do we end, man?
Got a lot of work ahead of me for tomorrow.
Yeah. Come on vacation, stay on probation. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Come here, party, get arrested, get put on probation. Now you're stuck. Never heard that one?
No, I haven't.
Oh man, I got tossed around. I've heard that one like millions of times.
Lot.
Probably every intake I ever did in substance abuse.
Yeah, that's like, yeah.
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 I got tossed
I don't
around.
know. Yeah. I haven't encountered that one.
Oh shoot, man.
Learn
Yeah.
something new every day.
Yeah. Come for the outdoors, stay for the people, come on vacation, stay on probation. Yeah. Flagstaff.
Well, may as well just cut this for the Bureau
This
of
is good.
Tourism.
The Greater Chamber of Commerce here. Once again, Flagstaff, you're welcome. Flagstaff.
You are welcome. You are welcome. How fortunate is Flagstaff to have us here?
Oh, well, yeah. What? Oh my gosh. Dude. Oh man. This is the worst. This is the worst. I thought this would be different. Something better and different.
This would be different and better
Different
than
and
this.
better than this. Yeah.
It's great that she says different first and then needs to emphasize.
Something
I
different.
thought this would be different and better than this.
We create that experience for people often. Yeah. Oh man. Good Lord. Oh my gosh. This is the least competent intro we've done. Again, possibly for one of our most competent guests. Well, sorry about us. Oh man. Yeah. So Navy SEALs. Here's a fun fact. I was on snack duty the other week. I bet our listeners will be really compelled by that one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah? Snack duty, you
Snack
say?
duty, man. I got those kids oranges and Capri Sun.
Oh, and how did it go over? Tell us more. Tell us the depth of the story.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a really big bummer, man. Is kids don't seem to be as into Capri Sun as I remember them being. So for some reason they didn't want that.
Man. Yeah, drinks nowadays probably got double the sugar and triple the artificial color.
Yeah, those kids are all just like, Coach, where's our Gatorade?
Oh, dang.
Where's my Gatorade and Red Bull?
Wow.
That's kind of how it goes.
Gatorade and Red Bull.
Yeah.
Like a mixed drink?
Yeah, they just mix it up, man. They want promethazine and vodka, too. These kids are crazy, man. They're only 6. These kids are crazy. I don't know, man, but we're getting some goals.
Yeah. Yeah. You still's doing good?
Yeah, we're doing good.